The solution to almost everything on the economic front is the Gandhian philosophy of being Swadeshi.
I don't mind paying 40% tax because I'm getting best roads. I'm getting quality of air. Look at the AQI in Delhi. आप लोग तो breathe कैसे कर सकते हो तो मुझे पता नहीं है.
The RBI has not been selling rupees in global markets.
They're going to make something that they manufacture at say 125 rupees, they're going to make it 126. Are we realizing it that how much things are becoming expensive by? So basically what is going to happen is it gets into a spiral effect and it hurts me to discuss these things at the kitchen table with my wife.
Biggest pie actually comes into the purchase of gold and the purchase of oil.
We have led our largest ever delegation to Davos. That has unfortunately become a platform where people from Mumbai are meeting other people from Mumbai in Davos.
GST, simplification is not going to matter, especially when these prices are going to go up. So ultimately, are they going to cut off each other?
And what course correction can be made? Hello and welcome. You're watching me, Sanket Upadhyay, on the Federal. This is AI with Sanket. AI not as you know it. This is the AI of news. Because news in India today requires not artificial, but analytical intelligence. On the show this evening, we are going to talk about our economy and we are going to talk about the value of the rupee. Against the dollar, the rupee has crossed 91. People joke about it. They say that the country ISD codes are now the same as the exchange rate of the currency. +1 for the dollar and +91 for India. Jokes apart, this is an alarming situation. Yes, a number of factors are not in our control. You've got a Donald Trump who's breathing down everyone's neck. He is creating a situation where a lot of order-based decisions globally are not being taken. Having said that, what is the accountability of the Indian government towards the Indian people? Because in this discussion, you will realize the 91 rupees to a dollar is not just some academic note to take. This is actually impacting your life. It ought to be the kitchen table conversation in your life. Let's throw this open for a discussion where we ask this basic question and a more important question. Rupee at 91. How it impacts you and your household directly. Joining us right now is Mr. Swapnil Kothari. Swapnil Kothari is the president of the Council for Fair Business Practices. He's also written an article in the newspapers today where he talks about the falling rupee and how you must not just restrict it to an academic exercise or an academic conversation of, look, it will benefit the exporters, look, it is a regular practice, it has happened over the... This is not even political. This commentary, according to Mr. Swapnil Kothari, of the rupee at 91 is and must be a kitchen table issue. Swapnil Kothari, thank you very much for joining us. Would you like to tell us the reasons why you feel that this is and must be seen as a kitchen table issue, an issue which matters to all of us all?
Sanket, usually what happens is that when I discuss this concept with Rupee was already had written something about it, my co-authoress, and she told me that Swapnil, this is a very alarming issue. So I said, let's visit it from the perspective of the consumer. People generally talk about it only from the macroeconomic perspective that, the dollar has risen, rather the rupee has risen vis-a-vis the dollar, and, even vis-a-vis the pound, it's 122, or at euros, it's about 109 or 108 and things like that. And, they just tend to forget about it, saying there is a balance of payments issue. The importers, exporters have to worry about it, and the government at the macro level has to see that, when I go as a tourist to another country, all I need to do is if I can save some rupees, when I stop converting it, and, they've all sorts of these kind of things at foreign exchange card levels and things like that. You have the Forex card and all of those things. So I said, that's a very macro perspective. What about the consumer on the ground? What about you and I? What about simple people like you and me? What do these big, larger conglomerates do? They are not going to absorb the cost totally themselves. They're obviously going to pass it on to us in some form or the other. So what are they going to do? They're going to make something that they manufacture at say 125 rupees, they're going to make it 126, and it's very minuscule. But when you amplify it, when you multiply it by the millions and the number of the quantity of the products that is there, then what happens? Are we realizing it, that how much things are becoming expensive by the day? Of course, your GST simplification is not going to matter, especially when these prices are going to go up. So ultimately, are they going to cut off each other? So she said, yeah, I think that's a very good thing, Swapnil, and I think let's write it from that perspective. And let's pick about 3 to 4 points or 5 points where, it's really going to hurt. What about MSMEs? I said, yeah, that is something which, is also a worrisome issue, because MSMEs are barely coming out and, barely growing. And those are an important factor of our economy if we want to be Viksit by 2047. It should not be a pipe dream. It should be a realistically achievable perspective, achievable goal. So that part, you take care of it, and I'll look at the perspectives of what the household, refrigerator prices will go up. Other household perspectives like mixer grinders, possibly even cars tomorrow could go up if we are importing certain parts and things like that to make a car here. Say, for example, if I'm sure the Mercedes car is manufactured here or the BMW is manufactured here, but the point is that some of the parts are absolutely imported. What if they hike those prices? Then obviously they're going to hike up the price of the car as well. So, it's going to come to us in a way that, okay, because it's a Mercedes car, so hoga na, theek hai, 2-3 lakh se badha diya, to kya farak padta hai? The person who's going to be able to afford a car will say, theek hai, I'll pay for it. But at the end of the day, eventually that kind of trickles down to a lot of people, right down to the level of you and I, where it's something which you need to really worry about and we need to write about it. So that is the reason, this article really made it to the edit page in a very comprehensive, succinct manner which you and I, or which a general reader will understand. And I completely removed my legal part from it because I did not want to write about the law at all. Because, that is another subject for another day altogether. Then you have to address the Foreign Exchange Management Act and this, that, and the other, several other FCRA issues and all those things which I did not want to get into because that gets too complex. And then, that is more suitable for an economic times or a mint, not for the Times of India.
More importantly, it's more suited for the understanding of the common man.
Correct.
And woman. So let's just stick to that. You see, the economic picture and what it does to the economy is one thing. As we said at the very beginning of this broadcast also, its impact on people is what we are going to focus on over here. So the argument is, and we know that now the rupee has crossed 91 also. Soon it will become 92. So it's just tumbling. This is a 5% decrease in the value of the currency in the year 2025 alone, and it continues. When will it go? When will it stop? One does not know. But the decline continues. It's the sharpest currency move in years. This is no longer just a market issue, argues Swapnil Kothari. He says it will weaken the kitchen tables as the gap is widening between growth headlines and daily life. Now, let's go one by one. Why it matters to the households, Mr. Swapnil Kothari, could you just explain the cost rise that will impact the consumer? For instance, I can understand for imported goods, but suppose if I'm not buying imported goods, how does it affect my budget? My day-to-day shopping.
Right. See, the point is that my day-to-day shopping of tomatoes and onions is not going to be really affected because that is something which we manufacture in-house. That's our domestic growth. Like a person in a village buys tomatoes for 5 rupees or 10 rupees a kg, which is impossible or unheard of in a city like Mumbai or Delhi. So we'll end up paying 30 or 40 rupees. That again, I've touched it upon another article at some point in Business India because I regularly write for that as well about price gouging and all of those things where people are deliberately hoarding those issues. But now to answer your question, on daily basis, the daily goods are not going to be affected. But when I talk about refrigerators, when I talk about Sony television, those are household items today. We are a burgeoning middle class. We are a rising middle class. Tomorrow, I will not be surprised if my retailer of Sony TV will sell me at Sony TV, the smallest one, which is at about 25,000 rupees at 26,000. And I'll ask him कि price क्यों बढ़ गया? He'll say, sir, वो हमको तो major manufacturer से ये बात करके आया कि भाई 26 के नीचे भेजना नहीं आपको, बेचना नहीं, और हमारा मार्जिन तो सिर्फ 300 रुपए है. तो हम आपको ज्यादा से ज्यादा 26,000 में बेच सकते हैं या 25,800 में बेच सकते हैं, मैं 100 रुपए घर पे लेके जाऊँ. So, Sanket, the point is that household today, when you're talking of household items, you're not talking only about cheese and tomatoes and onions and eggs and things like that. You're talking about these things which are an important aspect of middle class, a rising middle class. And today, what is the meaning of a Viksit Bharat? A Viksit Bharat means, what is the meaning of a developed America or a developed United Kingdom? You have at least 60 to 70% middle class. We are around 40 to 50% middle class. We are increasing it to 60, gradually to 70. That is the time we'll become Viksit. And why? Because we are able to afford a juice, we are able to afford a TV, we are able to afford a refrigerator, we are able to afford a small car also, which may be indigenously manufactured, but suppose the parts are imported. So that is where I'm trying to say that is the point of Viksit Bharat. We did not want to write Viksit Bharat there because then, it would attract sort of unnecessary, invitation or attention. Ke, bhai, ye directly isko kyun attack kar raha hai? Let me just stick to, basic common man and then let people read into it that eventually we are not going to be a Viksit Bharat. So we made it sure we don't want to write that part at all. Because that's another loop. That will be like 3 series articles, a trilogy of articles, where we say that this is going to hurt that. So basic, your household income is going to, your expense is going to go up. No question about it, because these things which are there in your house and my house are no longer an affordable luxury. They are an absolutely wanted necessity. If I don't see TV, I don't see Sanket Upadhyay, I don't see people, or I don't get the information. It's as simple as that. It's like not getting newspapers. मुझे information नहीं मिलेगा. Right to information is my fundamental right.
Correct. We'll also be joined in by economist Mitali Nikor. Thank you very much, Mitali, for joining us. We were just discussing, Swapnil and I were discussing on the rupee sliding at 91 and continuously sliding, and how this is not just the issue for economics or economists at a boardroom table. This is actually something which affects the kitchen table. It ought to be a kitchen table conversation if it is not. Mitali, would you like to weigh in?
So
How can this be stopped? What can be done?
In fact, Sanket, it's very interesting that we're talking about the rupee today, because currently I'm in Jakarta. Just I came this week for some work, and even Indonesia is facing a very similar currency weakening. There's a huge fiscal crisis here as well. And here I'm actually feeling very rich because, 1 million Indonesian rupiah is 5,000 Indian rupees. So, so honestly, it also just gives some perspective, that maybe the Indian rupee is not doing. I mean, of course, it's not doing very well, but it's also not that bad either. I think the bigger challenge that is happening right now is just that we are not tracking and visibilizing the data itself, because there's so much of a decline in the currency value if you compare the last 2 years. And yet at the same time, we're not actually talking about this. We are simply talking about the growth rate and saying, okay, our growth rate is so good. We've seen an 8% growth in the last quarter. We've seen a 7% growth. But a lot of the gains from that growth get eroded when we have this sort of rupee depreciation, and also we have the import pressure. So somewhere we have to start thinking about, A, how much of the dollar dependence can we reduce? B, how much of an import substitution can we achieve? And C, how can we actually manage better in the foreign currency markets? If we don't do all three simultaneously, then this will never actually become an issue, and we will be. I mean, of course, we are not going in the direction of the Indonesian rupiah, but look at how Zimbabwe has turned their currency around. I mean, and they've even delinked with the dollar now. So I think there is a need for us to be cautious, but not be, of course, not be that alarmed yet.
You see, Ms. Mithali Nikor and Swapnil Kothari, de-dollarization in this country, for it to take shape and affect our dependence on the dollar reduction. Now, this is a conversation which has been happening for a while. Even if we were, say, for instance, to start now, despite the fact that you have got a Donald Trump gunning down your throat for a trade agreement, even if we say we start right now, it will still take I've spoken to a number of economists. It will still take decades before you can actually rid yourself of dollar dependency. So that is a very long-term measure, Mitali. The dinner table effect is immediate. So, from an immediate standpoint, what can be done?
So I think the first and most important measure that we can do immediately is really start to think about how the Reserve Bank of India is trading in global markets. So every time, so the RBI has some norms at this point in time, but if you notice the last 3 months, the RBI has not been selling rupees in global markets to the extent that it was in terms of currency management in like the first 2 quarters of 2025. The RBI has actually let the rupee slide a little bit in the global markets. And one of the reasons for that is they want the rupee to become a little more competitive in global markets to offset the impact of the tariffs. Because, when the rupee depreciates, our goods and services become cheaper. And then if you are dealing with a scenario where you have a 50% tariff on your goods, then suddenly it improves your competitiveness. So there has been a little bit of a give and take over there, but of course now we are at that point where the RBI should again think about selling rupees, creating the demand. But the other thing is also about negotiating with some of the biggest creditors that we have, like for example in our oil purchases. If we I mean, I know we are talking about de-dollarization to a full extent taking a decade or even more than that, and maybe it's never even possible. But when we look at that pie of why do we need dollars at the government level for government purchases, the biggest pie actually comes into the purchase of gold and the purchase of oil. So when we look at these two categories, oil purchases which are not happening in global oil markets, if we are doing bilateral oil purchases, then those are definitely areas where we can say, can we not do them in another currency? And that's really the question, to be done. And the other, of course, is to increase the demand for rupees in the market will only come when more and more foreign investors want to come and invest in India, right? And that is also an area on which we need to work pretty much immediately from an economic lens.
Yeah, I mean, we've led our largest ever delegation to Davos, but
We're
unfortunately,
all
that has
meeting each
become
other.
that is unfortunately become a platform where people from Mumbai
Are
are
meeting
meeting other
together.
people from Mumbai in Davos. Swapnil Kotari, coming back to you on this issue. See, you were addressing the concern of how the decline in value of the rupee is going to affect things like consumer durables like AC, fridge, washing machine. Imported parts will be costlier. There will be depreciation, which will be more. Core inflation is already at 4%. December core inflation was at 4.6%. So this is a bit of a tricky situation. And if this uh, decline continues, this path also, or the trajectory is also going to continue. Let's look at jobs and incomes. How that is also stagnated and how that impacts or face it's almost like a double whammy. If you could just explain for the benefit of our
Yeah, you
viewers.
see, I'll tell you something. Just because the rupee is depreciating, nobody, if I'm a salaried employee,
Yeah.
at whatever level, whether I'm a CEO or even below that, or whatever the rungs of the ladder may be, say in a corporate chain. I'm not talking of MSMEs, I'm talking of a big corporate chain. You're not going to say, okay, because the rupee has depreciated, so let me hike up your income a little bit so that your take home remains the same. Then I would never worry about even rupee going up to $125. So that's going to affect my income in a way, because my purchasing power reduces to that extent. If we all remember, the way we studied economics in college, it was the purchasing power parity ratio. So of course, Mithali will be able to say that much more than I would, because I'm a professional lawyer and she's an economist. But the basics of what I understand, Sanket, is that today the price of petrol is hiking up a little bit, or tomorrow it goes up a little bit because the imports and things like that, or Donald Trump trying to attack Greenland and Venezuela, ka to usne oil ke liye attack kiya hua hai. So what I'm trying to say is, the point is that petrol will hike up. Now the petrol hikes up, it eats into my household budget. Even if I have a small car, it's going to still hurt my budget. Now take another example, medical facilities. People say, oh, India has the best medical care in the world. It's cheap, it's accessible. I just need to go to a dentist and he's already available for me, as opposed to say a Belgium or London, where it takes me 3 weeks to even show my tooth. So the point is that that's all fine, great. But the point is that what if I have an enhanced illness? What if I have to go to an hospital? If I were to be hospitalized, what about the instruments that are there to check certain things of my physiognomy? Those instruments, if they are based on the fact that you're purchasing, on the fact that they've contained parts which are important, so that Medicare is also going to go up. They're going to pass it on to me. Sanket, let me tell you, insurance premium likewise will have a spiral effect. Because eventually I'll say, oh, boss, I cannot pay this much. So let me go to the insurance company. They'll say, oh, okay, now you want this to be covered. Oh, so now pay more premium. So basically what is going to happen is it gets into a spiral effect, and it hurts me to discuss these things at the kitchen table with my wife if I'm the sole earning member in my house. So the point is, even if so is my wife is earning, at the end of the day, we wanted to approach this from a common man's perspective. And let me tell you, Sanket, जो तुमको थाली दिखाई है वहां पे, और थाली में जो रुपया बनाया हुआ है बीच में और उसके इर्द गिर्द जो बनाया, that is a very apt description of the way Times of India has put it. A picture speaks more than 1,000 words. So in the article, if you see the thali that they have shown, that thali is only going to get costlier by the day. That is what they are trying to show, and especially the points that I have made. Now, how does the government address it? The government needs to stop going to Davos and meet its own people there. That is one thing. That's number one way of doing it. And going there, then try to stick up to your stand. Stand up to whatever you want to say. Make sure that you are able to get imports at a level that which you can afford. Because what the government is doing is saying, oh, I've rationalized the GST and now budget is coming up. Let's see what they do it in the budget. So we timed this article in a way that it maybe at our very little level, it tells the government that, look, you need to take care of this as well. Don't talk to me about these big things of $650, $1 billion, and we are like Fort Knox of the Asia and all that, and this, that, and the other. वो किसी का पल्ले नहीं पड़ता वो सब चीजें. You're talking of very high academic inclination, and people who are really up there will understand. But the common man वो ये नहीं देखता है. The common man, it's like saying that police पैसा क्यों खाता है and all those kind of things. You say, भाई जो पगार मिलता है उसमें घर नहीं चलता, ईमान क्या चलेगा? So the point is that the point is कि ये basic level पे आप बात कीजिए. That is the time you will be called as a Viksit Bharat. What is the meaning of Viksit? What is the advantage of a developed country like even Norway, UK, United States, about European countries, other European countries? What is the best advantage? Why do people go there and say that? Because of the facilities, because of the infrastructure. I don't mind paying 40% tax because I'm getting best roads. I'm getting quality of air. Look at the AQI in Delhi. आप लोग तो breathe कैसे कर सकते हो तो मुझे पता नहीं है. It's virtually impossible. Air purifier are also of no use. It's pharyngitis cases are lapping up. That was another topic that I was thinking of writing upon. So people told me, Swapnil, इस पे लिखो. I said, मुझे मेरी legal practice छोड़नी पड़ेगी अगर मैं ये सब topic पे लिखने बैठूंगा तो. I'd rather write on what is going on in the judiciary. That is where I really feel, because that is
that's your other and more important avatar. But so is this, which we a reflection of which we saw. Mithali Nikor, just quickly coming back to this point one more time, because addressing 91 rupees to a dollar academically. And I have nothing against academicians. I have nothing against intellectuals. I don't think it is a bad word to use. But over-intellectualization of 91 rupees to a dollar versus its impact in day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And having an intellectual argument on how it is affecting the common man is the attempt of this program. So Mithali, just wanted to know from you, how is this going to immediately impact consumer behavior all of 2026, assuming that this trend continues in 2026, and what course correction can be made? Just a sort of a SWOT analysis, if you could give us.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I totally agree with Swapnil that, at the end of the day, what we are really trying to do is try to understand how can you improve the standard of living for the common person, right? And that is exceedingly important. Now, if we continue to go on this trend, right? Let's say we are at 91 now, we go to 100, 120, there's no limit, right? What will take us down this trend? There will be mostly global factors that will take us down this trend, which will be a little bit outside of our control, to be very honest, because there is a lot of, see, the forex markets are not something that we control or dictate. At this point in time, also, we find that, this 91 number has come about because the demand for dollars is strengthening. The way the US is sort of dictating terms in global markets is making foreign investors flee towards the dollar, and that is something that, it's hard for the Reserve Bank of India, and it's hard for any of the Indian entities to control. So that is a little bit out of our control, right? But what can we do? We have to safeguard and we have to anticipate. The one thing that we are not doing right now, we are playing on the defense when it comes to the foreign exchange rate. We are saying, हाँ ठीक है, we can't do anything, हमने हाथ खड़े कर लिए, because it's in the global market. But it's not like that. We have tools. We have tools to manage the currency. We have tools to sell the rupees in the global market. And we have to also do scenario analysis and project. If the rupee hits 100 to a dollar, if the exchange rate hits 120, if the exchange rate hits 140, we should do the scenario analysis and try to say what are the war chests that we will pull out in each of these situations. How much rupees will we sell in the market at this level? How much, what will we do at this level? Will we have, more de-dollarization levels coming in at this level? So we need to have a roadmap with these scenarios, sort of prepared internally and ready to go if those situations actually become real. And the second aspect, in terms of what I would say in terms of diversification, right? It is important for us to start looking at of course, the pound itself is also at 124. The euro is also rising. The euro is sitting at around 111. So, but we have to start thinking about having our reserves in multiple currencies: dollar, euro, pound, even the yuan, and other currencies as well. We and the ruble. These are important currencies for India's trade because we are trading with a number of partners. Even we are trading with UAE. We have to again start thinking about, can we trade with them, in other currencies than the dollar. So I think the de-dollarization efforts have to, there is no option there. But the other option is also to increase the demand for the rupee, like I said. Now, like when Swapnil said about refrigerators or about medical equipment, right? These, if something is important, definitely the price of that will go up. What do we do in the supply chain? We have to increase the proportion of the supply chain that is then manufactured in India, right, to reduce our import dependence. Now, the Make in India program, to some extent, and then following that, the production linked incentive scheme, both of these schemes were, with this, were started with this mindset that, okay, we need to have more and more of our supply chain manufactured here. Now, as we go forward, of course, we have to continue on that path, but we should select those commodities that are more exposed to the forex risk. And, consumer facing durables, anything which is actually impacting the common person. So, your FMCG products, right now, FMCG is not in that list of production linked incentive schemes. Electronics are there, but FMCG is not there. So, if you're importing microwaves, this, nobody is coming to set up, plants in India to manufacture microwaves. Kuch ho raha hai, but is it enough? It's not, because we're still importing to meet our needs. So what we really need is an audit of what are we importing, how much of the forex is going on each of the different commodities that we're importing, and where is it that we have a competitive advantage, and where can we substitute more and more and more to manufacture in India. See, and I'll tell you why this hasn't happened also. The way all economies have been taught to think for decades is that trade is good. The WTO framework was always about trade being a very critical element and instrument for growth for economies, right?
But isn't it?
Now, I'm coming to that. That was the situation when, as before Mark Carney put it in his Davos speech, when we had a rules based trading order. Now, Even leaders like the Canadian Prime Minister are admitting that that rules based trading order has not just been punctured, it has been ruptured. And we're not going back to that rules based trading order anytime soon. So, in this situation, when your import dependency on another country exposes you to a geopolitical risk and to a forex risk, it makes much more sense to then invest in your own country and your own capabilities and not worry about trade as an instrument of growth solely. Like the more you export, yes, great. But then you will also, if you have a trade deal with another country, you have to import from them also. So you have to still invest in your own domestic capabilities because you don't know, even if a trade deal is in place, what is going to happen, with the geopolitical scenario, because the relationships are changing every day. So, in such a situation, definitely I have been advocating and we have been speaking that we need to invest more on making in India. And it's good that we have already started on that path, but we definitely have to really expedite that.
No, I mean, I'm very happy to hear that the solution to almost everything on the economic front is the Gandhian philosophy of being Swadeshi. However, the
Exactly.
problem is that in a connected world, it is extremely difficult to do that. Even your Make in India vehicle will have a dozen other sensors which will be manufactured in China, or kilograms and kilograms of batteries that will come from China, or technology that will come from somewhere else. So it's very difficult to completely be insulated from the rest of the world. Now, Swapnil, as we end this broadcast, just quick closing comments on, again, coming back to consumers. You write in your article that households will have to cut discretionary spending. Overseas travel, which has become the hot favorite for middle class Indians, may have to become more costly. Foreign education will, the cost will rise. Consumers trade down on quality. Pack sizes will shrink. This amazing concept these days of shrinkflation, where the very famous Vicks capsule is ever decreasing in size, or the Parle-G biscuit packet is decreasing in size, price remains 5 rupees. So do you think all of these things are now going to continue to happen?
Well, Sanket, absolutely. In fact, I was going to point out that one of the smartest ways that a business company had done, and I don't want to get into the name of that company, when they realized, apart from the currency depreciation, this was an internal issue at that time when the inflation was high. What they thought is that, let's not pass it on to the consumer. They very smartly reduced the size of that biscuit by 1 millimeter. So when I put it in my mouth, I do not know the discernible difference. It's like, when you go to a five-star hotel, they don't want to hike up the rates, say 10,000 rupees per night. What they'll do is they'll remove, instead of 3 towels, they'll put only 2. You'll hardly notice the difference because you don't know that instead of 3, they've put 2 towels and things like that. And एक टिकिया लगा दी, 2 टिकिया की जगह साबुन की जगह पे. So, that way you do that. The way United Airlines, a couple of years ago, when they were facing a cash crunch, what they did is they reduced one grape from the tray, one black grape from the tray that they were serving throughout the year. They saved $40,000. So, that is smart selling. एक ग्रेप रिड्यूस कर दिया, वजन कम हो गया, पता भी नहीं चला. मैंने 10 गए कि 11 में गिरने थोड़ी बैठने वाला हूं, मैं तो खाने वाला हूं ना जाके सीधा ट्रे में. 2 घंटे की फ्लाइट है, 3 घंटे की फ्लाइट है. So the point is that, Sanket, the issue is, as you pointed out, we are pointing out to foreign education, foreign travel. United Kingdom, 10 years visa, 140,000, 1,40,000 for 10 years. United States, 15,000 rupees, 16,000 rupees, they give you blanket 10 years any which ways. What we are going to do is, as far as many of the other countries are concerned, try to get visa on arrival for a minimal amount. If you can't manage the foreign exchange here, so that is one way you try to offset and tell the people that, look, we are trying to do that. There has to be active involvement. When you run an idea of reducing one grape, you will get a B- or a D in your paper. But when actually that comes true, you'll be passing off with flying colors with a CEO. The way Federal Express, the guy who founded Federal Express, Sanket, he wrote that concept of Federal Express, so courier from one country to the other. He got a D. He was failed. But he became a multi-million-dollar CEO because when he actually put it into practice. So the point is that an idea which starts off as a heresy is usually a success. So you have to have concrete measures. in this kind of things. Otherwise, you are not going to be able to fix it. तो भूल ही जाओ, आप फोर्थ लार्जेस्ट हो, बुलेट ट्रेन बनाओगे, उसके बाद आप ये कॉमन मैन को तो आप स्क्वीज ही करोगे कहीं ना कहीं की तरफ. क्वालिटी में जब तक कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं करते तो ठीक है, बिस्किट की साइज छोटी होगी, मुझे फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. बट एट द एंड ऑफ द डे मेरा फॉरेन ट्रैवल जाना चाहिए. मैं ज्वेलरी काउंटर पे नहीं जाऊंगा. 1,40,000 का गोल्ड मेरे कैपेसिटी में नहीं है, 3.5 लाख का सोना सिल्वर मेरे कैपेसिटी में नहीं है. इट्स आउट. नाउ आई ओनली गो टू ट्रैवल ओवरसीज. वहां पे कुछ करो, करना है तो.
Correct. Well, after hearing the two of you, I could only think of Shankar Iyer's very famous book called Accidental India, which basically says that we are such a chaotic country that the only time we actually push for massive reforms on the economic front is when there is an accident or a crisis. Look at 1991 liberalization, bank nationalization. I mean, the history is full of examples of big bang economic reforms only happening because a crisis had hit us on the head. So, is this a crisis that deep enough, or are we going to sugarcoat this and be nice about it? No, there are benefits also. So, if that is going to be the philosophy, then we are perhaps waiting for the next accident. Mithali Nikor, Swapnil Kothari, thank you very much for this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.